Not only that, but the original email has disappeared from my files.
How does that happen?
Well, you tell me.
That is insane. From your inbox, it's gone.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Happy Freya. Welcome to episode 14 of season 2 with special guest Paul Hellyer. Paul, welcome to the show.
My pleasure to be on it.
Thank you. And so just an introduction, the Honorable Paul Hellyer is, I consider, a Canadian icon and a true visionary. He was a pioneer of his times and still today. He served on the Royal Canadian Air Force during World War II. He's an aeronautical engineer. He started his career in politics early on, and he became one of the youngest elected cabinet ministers for his region at that time. He served as National Defense Minister of Canada, and in September 2005, he became the first person of cabinet to unequivocally state in the G8 group of countries, UFOs are real as the airplanes flying overhead. So as you can see, Paul has a very diverse, multifaceted career and background, and I assume that's related to his vast interest and knowledge and curiosity of what's here on this planet. I thought, what a better way to start than to go back to where it all started, which was your father's ginseng farm. And if you could share that with us first and how that set the foundation for your political career.
Well, my father was the pioneer of the ginseng business in Canada, which incidentally was either the first or second export from Canada to the Far East in the, I think, the 18th century. And so I had a wonderful upbringing, and working on the farm is a great experience. You learn all sorts of things that have a big advantage over people who are raised in the city. But actually, I don't think that it was very useful when I got into politics, but I don't think it had anything to do with my getting into politics. It may have been sparked by one of my teachers. I can't remember whether it was in grade school or high school, who said he thought I would be a politician and go up the ladder a long way. And that may have sparked it, but then the real test came many years later when I was at university and was concerned about recessions and depressions, which I thought were unnecessary, even though my professors said they were part of the system and made it sound as if they were common sense, when in fact they're not common sense, in my opinion. There's never been either a recession or a depression that was necessary. They're all monetary phenomena. And so that was the driving force that got me in to the business so soon. I graduated from the university in May and was elected to the House of Commons in June.
Wow.
And only started halfway through the campaign, because then they were 13 weeks long, because they took a new census or whatever they call it every election, and went around and knocked on doors to pick up the names and put them on the list. And so with that handicap and many other handicaps, I did the impossible, not knowing what I was doing, but doing it well. And got elected in 1949 in June.
Oh, wow. I mean, and that's a very long-spanning political career as well. How did you?
70 years.
How many years?
Well, so 70 years since I.
Okay. I had to ask because in your autobiography, you mentioned that you were kind of interested in politics. Was that something you were drawn into? Because it sounds like, from being on the farm, that's so calm and peaceful, to wanting to change. I guess you saw that change came from politics or a form of it.
I don't think there was any connection.
Okay.
I went from the farm to California to school, and then into the armed forces.
Right.
And then to university at the public expense. And it was only there, really,
Okay, that you felt drawn to it.
Yeah, well, it was driven really because my instructors, my professors said there was going to be another depression, underlying depression,
Okay.
1950. And I'm a child of the Depression. I'd seen poverty at its worst level. I said, that should never happen again. I've got to try and do something about it.
Okay.
So I spent about a year trying to get a Liberal nomination in a riding that was hopeless, which was the only reason that anybody would let me have it. And that's was the beginning of my political career.
I want to ask about this depression as well. You said it didn't have to happen. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, if you're coming back to the monetary thing later, why let's.
Okay, then we'll touch it then. Okay. Well, because you've had such a vast career, and I wanted to touch on this because I found it important. You talk about the still small voice in your head. Can you talk about how that helps you navigate your decisions, that you make in life, and also one of the funny stories that went along with that?
Well, as I just said, I was elected in 49, re-elected in 57, yes. And in 56, I was named parliamentary secretary to the Minister of National Defense, okay. Which was sort of the tip-off that I was going to be chosen as the minister from Toronto. And then just before the election in 57, when the government wasn't doing too well and they wanted to reduce the average age of the ministry, they appointed me. I'm 33 years old, and so I became the first cabinet minister, associate minister of national defense, and it was equal and equivalent to the minister as long as you knew that it wasn't.
Okay.
So with that understanding, I was a big shot for 8 weeks, and we lost. And then, fortunately, I had been in the building business, not voluntarily, but was in the building business and had not resigned my position as president and had a job to go to. Mm-hmm. This incident you're talking about is in my second last book, which was called Hope Restored, an autobiography. Mm-hmm. And I think for most people it's more interesting than my latest book. But I was raised in the church. I was a believer. I was very spiritual, or reasonably so for a young man. And I did well in politics, and I thought, this is my game. And but every once in a while I had this little voice saying, well, why don't you go into the ministry of the cloth instead of the ministry of the department of the government?
Department of Ministry, yeah.
And and of course, immediate reaction was basically, I don't want to. I want to be in politics.
Yeah.
So that summer, our church joined with another one just a few streets away because with many people away on vacation, there wasn't enough congregation in either one to support having a service. And I knew the minister, who was really more interested in music than he was in preaching, I always thought. But I went there on a Sunday, and something he said, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I know that it finally said to me, you have to go into the ministry. And I said, that's
your calling.
Yes. And I said, well, Lord, on the understanding that you will help me with my languages, because I flunked out of both French and Latin.
Yeah.
I've got to learn Greek and Hebrew. And so it's going to be a real toughie, and I'm going to need an awful lot of help. But what happened, and I think you have to go through something like this to understand it. As soon as I went home, got on my knees and said, that's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. I had what I call the peace that passeth understanding. Just the whole world is right. It was perfect. And I felt so much at ease.
Mhm.
I said, obviously, this is good. And so I finally jumped into the pond, and we'll see what happens. So I spent 2 or 3 days actually looking at the universities and possibilities. And then I think it was 2 weeks later, I went back to the same church, the same minister,
Mhm.
and he said something, and halfway through the service, the voice was very clear. Said, Paul, no, politics is your calling,
Mhm.
but first you had to surrender.
That's it.
You had to accept my will, not yours.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that was the beginning of a long-standing relationship with the Creator God,
Mhm.
and it's been deepening ever since.
Mhm.
So it's been a long road, but it's been a wonderful road. And it all began by saying, your will, not mine.
That's powerful. That's a really powerful story. And I thank you for sharing that, because I wanted to share that with our audience as well, the moment to surrender and your personal story with that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So when you decided to get back into politics, when did you discover what you call the Money Mafia? Like who are they? And also, how is this affecting Canada and the globe?
First of all, let me tell you about getting back.
Yeah.
Just a few days after the surrender,
Yes.
the newly elected member of parliament in the adjoining riding was watching a major league, the finals in the Major League Baseball playoffs for the world.
Okay.
And he had a heart attack and died.
Right.
And so indecently soon after that, one of my best supporters phoned and said, have you heard the news?
That's it. Yeah.
And I said, what news? He said, no, well, the MP in the adjoining riding has died, and that's a chance for you to move over there and get back into politics.
Mhm.
And so, in effect, that's what happened. It was a long, interesting story, but so unexpectedly, I got back in the House very soon and was given credit for helping to lead the way back, because at that time, the Liberal Party thought it would be 10 years before they could hope to get back in power.
Mhm.
And my victory gave them the assurance to think that maybe we could do better than that, which we did, in fact. And so it was sort of leading on the road back. And I played a very significant part in the Prime Minister's victory.
Mhm.
And
And the Prime Minister at that time was?
well, that was Lester Pearson.
Okay.
And so much to the amazement of a lot of people, I got the job of Minister of National Defense. And it again, it was, in a sense, not, when I say not rational, there are people who you would say were better qualified.
Okay.
And especially his brother-in-law, Brigadier General, who had been in the war.
Yeah.
Everybody thought, well, he would be get the nod, because it was Pearson's best friend and supporter.
Right.
But I had done these things for him, and so he phoned somebody in Toronto and said, "What would you think if I appointed Paul Hellyer Minister of National Defense?" And they said, "That's what we expect you to do."
Oh, wow.
That's what happened.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's one of the top jobs, one of the top 4 top jobs. So you're sort of in the inner circle
Okay.
from the beginning. And so it gave me a tremendous job to do. It wasn't the one that I really wanted to do, which was the money job,
Okay.
to fix the money system.
What position is that? in Canada?
Finance.
Minister of Finance. Okay, thank you.
That would have been my first choice, but there was no way. By Walter Gordon, his right-hand man and friend, and the one who had financed his campaigns,
Okay.
got that job.
Okay.
And I was lucky to be that close.
Right.
So I took on this job, and I think from most points of view, did an extraordinary job of combining the forces. It's what every Minister of Defense wanted to do, but as Robert McNamara, the Defense Secretary in the United States, said, wanted to do, but wouldn't have the guts to try.
For the U.S.
For anywhere.
Oh, for anywhere. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Least of all the U.S., because they have the most retired generals and admirals and the nearest, and he was right in saying it that way. But that was, I think, a foundation for my present role, which is speaking truth to power in a very real way in the United States and Canada and elsewhere. And for some reason, the defense portfolio gives me more credibility than I would have had if I'd been Minister of Labor or Minister of
Finance.
So obviously. So it was all part of the plan, I think, and that's the way it worked out.
Okay.
So as far as the money thing is concerned, our money system is so incredibly stupid. It's indescribable. There's no word in the English language. But,
Paul, tell me how you really feel, Paul. That's perfect. I appreciate that, because more and more people are like, we need this kind of language and we need this kind of honesty and boldness in our communication when talking about politics and finances. And
sure. And money is nothing but a computer entry.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Which is where Bitcoin and other, I won't get into that too much, but we're seeing that now because people are looking for solutions.
You can get into that, but I will deal with it abruptly and shortly.
Yes.
There are all methods to cheat the people.
Okay.
Which is the same system we've had before, but a different variation on it.
Okay.
A new twist.
Yeah.
A few very bright people with good financial backing said, well, we've got to get a new way of cheating them, and that's going to be our new approach. And it's taking on a lot of.
It's taking off by storm, actually. Yeah.
And it's got to be stopped in its tracks if possible, because for hundreds of years, private banks have been lending money that they don't have.
Okay.
And people just can't understand this.
It's a big concept to kind of break down. I mean, for the viewers who are kind of new to this, we can kind of, read Paul's books, because it goes into details about this.
Right, but just let me give you one thing.
Okay.
Most people think that when they go into the bank to borrow money,
yes,
they're borrowing the money that somebody else deposited the day before.
Okay.
And that the bank actually had the money they're lending.
Right.
But they don't.
Right.
They create money. They create it out of thin air. And the way it works is that they ask you, say you want $35,000 to buy a new car.
Okay.
Do you have any collateral, stocks or bonds? And you say no. And how about a mortgage on your house? How about a second mortgage on your house?
Okay.
Fine. If not, do you have a rich relative that could co-sign for you? Well,
right.
As soon as you get something that they say yes to, they say, here's a note, a demand note for $35,000.
Okay.
And you sign here, and you do. And then they go over to the computer, and presto, there's $35,000 in your account.
Okay.
Seconds earlier, it did not exist.
Exactly.
So now you have to repay both the principal and interest.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, that's okay for us borrowing for cars. But when governments who own the patent to create money, their sovereign rights, the people own the patent to create money. But somehow they've been bribed or otherwise cajoled to give that right away. And the worst example is the United States.
Okay.
Some of the richest bankers in the world got together in Jekyll Island.
I heard, yes, okay.
And came up with this idea of the Federal Reserve System, which is neither federal nor reserve. It's private banks creating the people's money.
Okay.
And then lending it to them at interest.
I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
instead of the people creating the money, private individuals do. And some people have made as much as many, many trillions of dollars, trillions, a whole raft of them that way over the period of time since the Fed was established.
Okay.
And so that was the reason for my final book this last year is to say, if we're ever going to fix the system, now is the time to fix it, because there's going to be another meltdown.
I've heard that too. I mean, everybody's kind of wondering what's going on, and that's why we touched upon recession, because the jobs are like because of the COVID and the virus and all that. So it doesn't seem to be looking too well right now, Paul.
Well, that's right, and I only gave you half the story when money is created by the banks.
Yes.
During a bad time, if they call your loan and you have to pay it off, that destroys money. It's just like taking it and putting it in a wheelbarrow and throwing it into a furnace.
Okay.
And then there's not enough money to go around to start doing the things necessary to provide employment for the people. So I've spent my whole life trying to do something about this, so far not successfully, but I have, with others, come up with a plan. Okay. Which, in my opinion, is the best one that, on the board. Okay. You have to own your central bank, which Canadians do. One of the rare ones that own their bank 100%.
In Canada do, or Canadians do, or some, like, how does that work? Because this is...
Well, we Canadians own the central bank. Okay. All of the shares, and they're held by the Minister of Finance on behalf of us. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, good. So it's our bank. Okay. And the first governor, who was the brightest of all the people we've had around since I can remember, said Parliament can do whatever it likes. It can give banks rights to create money. Okay. If it wants to create some itself for the people so that they don't have austerity economics all the time, they can do that. Okay. Parliament is supreme. And all you have to do is have a parliament that is willing to listen for a couple of hours as to how the system works. And then to say, we're going to change the system a little bit. Mm-hmm. Instead of giving our bank bonds when we want to get money, okay, we'll just give them shares in our country. Non-redeemable, non-transferable, non-refundable. Okay. And that's the collateral, because they've just, the money masters have built up this system of central banks where you have to balance their books. So this is how you balance the books. You need $1 billion, and you give them 10, you need whatever, just divide it up and give them 10 shares that add up to $1 billion. And then they give you $1 billion to put in your bank account. Okay. This is the balances. And so what I have been promoting, and I won't go into great detail, is that whereas our banks in Canada now
Right.
can make loans equal to 20 times their capital.
Okay.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine?
I know, it's just like, that's okay.
Yeah, you've got $1,000 and you can lend it to 20 people and get interest from each one, which means you get $1,000 interest back every year.
Right.
It is robbery.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way for it. Grand larceny.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we have suggested, and it's this was not a one-man show, but is that we do this, reduce their ability from 20 times to 2 times.
Okay.
So they would still have enough ability to fund small business. If you went in and say, I'd like to just open a little shop or something or other, and I've got this much money, but I need a little more, I need a little credit, line of credit, the bank can do it, because that's what they're there for. And it's a big institution, and most of the people that work in banks are wonderful people. And so you don't want to destroy the institution, but you want to reduce its leverage.
Okay.
From 20, which is larceny, 2, which is fair. And so they still get 34%. The government gets 34% of the new money created every year, and the bank 66. And it works out so that everybody would be happy. You would have full employment. You would have enough money to fix up the hospitals and the old folks' homes and so on. And we wouldn't have any of this mess that we've had.
Yeah.
By borrowing the money for so long. Because after, well, it's a long story. We want to talk about other things.
No, but this is important, right? Because even with my audience, which is, just general, and it has a mixture, like it's important to educate, right? That you're doing right now. And you've been so diligent for so many years to at least provide some sort of solution. Like, we need to know where our money comes from, who prints it. And it sounds like from what you just discussed there, like the ratios, you're trying to even out the ratios so that it's like a win-win, but not grand larceny or whatever.
No, exactly. You've got it. Graham Towers, who was the first man, was the man who should be read by everyone.
Okay.
And he said that money is a book entry. That's all it is.
Yes.
Well, if he was alive today, he wouldn't say a book entry, because that's, gone. He'd say it's a computer entry.
It's gone electronic, and so it's not backed by any hard asset.
No.
Okay.
There's no backing.
Okay.
Except credit. And in that case, the government is saying it's the credit of the people, which it is with a bond, or it is with shares.
Okay.
And with the shares, and you never have to pay it back. You can save a lot of bookkeeping. And so there's a solution. It's a good one. People should study it. They should insist that the government do it. The idea has been presented to the Prime Minister the day he was elected.
Our recent one? Trudeau?
Yes.
Yeah.
What have we done about it? Nothing.
But that's why people are frustrated, Paul, sometimes is because it feels like it's falling on, like no one's listening. Yeah.
Deaf ears, whether it's climate change or changing the monetary system, anything important falls on deaf ears. It's got to end, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. And I think many Canadians and people across the globe share the same sentiment. And if those changes do seem to occur, it seems to occur through a few people deciding for all, which doesn't really involve the participating citizens and people to be a part of the solution, as you proposed earlier. So, okay. So that's a touch upon, that's like a drop on on the money system, because it's extensive, and I appreciate how you explained it so that, just the average person and anybody picking up on this can start to
The
understand.
prime minister, by turning down the idea
Mhm.
6 years ago, has robbed the Canadian people of more than $1 trillion.
Wow. Which we are over $1 trillion in debt anyway.
Oh, yeah, no, no.
Yeah. Okay. These are some bold statements that I'm glad it's out there, because this needs to be discussed. We need to air it out. Okay. So let's talk about globalization then, because can we just talk about what it is and what your viewpoint on that is? I mean, because this is affecting the farming industry as well. I mean, you talked about where they're trying to patent seeds now, right? And they're starting to do that. And I know Dr. Vandana Shiva kind of, extends more onto what the politics of farming has now gotten into. But can you comment on globalization, what it is and how it impacts?
Well, globalization is really another one of the efforts that the people running the world have made to transfer power from the people to transnational corporations.
Right.
And it has worked very successfully. It's part of a grander problem, perhaps, that they have plans for taking over the world.
I've heard that as well, yes. And many have.
Rather than doing what Hitler did and taking off one country at another after another and getting people all worked up, they said, well, let's be smart and just entice them into this idea of one world, one economy, wide open, everybody wins.
That's how it's being presented as, yeah. The Great Reset and whatnot, yes.
It is one of the most stupid ideas when you carry it to extent. Excuse me, my wife is listening. I
love it. This is awesome.
I mean, if we have boxing, for example, would you send a lightweight in against a heavyweight?
No.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're saying that we can compete with the United States. No.
Okay.
We're saying we can compete with the EU. No. The government's been trying to get a deal with China. Can we compete with China and the stuff they produce? No.
Okay.
So we had a system before this of where we each put in something into the pot and got something in return. It worked very well. But then they weren't satisfied, and they are going through this thing of cartelization of all of the major industries.
Okay.
And this has a negative impact on prices and control.
Are you talking about inflation?
Inflation, food prices allegedly went up 100%.
Yeah.
After the US got through their cartelization of the food industry.
Okay.
And who is in trouble? The poor countries, the poor people.
Okay.
People that can't afford food. And is still going up. And,
So I want to understand this. How does food price go up? I know we're competing with a larger, can you just explain that one more time? Like how is food prices affected by what's going on here?
Because if one company controls, or say 5 companies control all the beef production, major in the world.
Okay.
Then they do what John Mills used to say. They don't write an agreement to put prices up. They just do it over tea.
Okay.
And you have maybe a cocktail, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
The boys get together.
Okay.
And say, and our banks do this.
Right.
And they say, I think mortgages should go up or down depending on the circumstances. I think the cost of cashing a check should go up, and everybody.
Okay.
So then one of them will be the lead, and then the others will follow a few days later, and the prices are up, and that's inflationary.
Okay.
And a good example, probably the best example, is oil. And the Fellers did this for generations,
Yeah.
and they still put the price of oil up, of gasoline up on Thursdays and bring it down on Mondays.
Everybody note that, because it's gone up anyway, which I think Canada is like the third largest producer of oil and gas anyway in the world, though I've heard, but
we're not controlling the price.
I know. So
because we don't own the biggest companies.
Paul
Can't afford to, because their banks are bigger than our banks, and they have more power than we have power. So
okay.
we get squeezed out, and guess the ordinary people are the ones who get it in the neck every time. And so they've done this with big pharma.
Yep.
We're really been being ripped off with big pharma,
right?
And agriculture, and
yeah,
all of these things.
It's all being affected massively right now,
pushing up the price for ordinary people,
and even housing as well.
Housing as I was in the housing business, as I hinted.
Exactly. Yeah.
And houses that I sold for $14,750.
Oh my gosh.
Are today selling for about $850,000.
Oh my gosh. In Vancouver here, I'm in Richmond, but in Vancouver, like when I was in high school, houses were around 250 or 300 or something like that. Now it's like over $1 million, close to 1.5.
Yeah. Well, the average house in Toronto now is $1 million, and there was a picture in the paper this week of somebody buying a garage for $1 million. Just a garage. Because
sorry, I have to laugh at that. I mean, it's just insane. A garage. Like somebody posted, it was satirical, but somebody posted like something they made on a beach made out of wood in Vancouver and they said beach house property $1 million, right? Like it's.
So it's a crazy system, and I could explain more. One of the reasons is, again, the monetary system.
Okay.
They had to bring interest rates down to zero or almost,
mm-hmm.
in order to find people who would borrow money.
Okay. This is what happened in the States prior to the crash, though, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's a sort of a sucker bait. You get them to buy houses when interest rates are
low,
1.5% low.
Yeah.
And then they start to go up, and people start to get in trouble.
But don't people lock them?
Well, there's an article in the paper today about the advisability of locking or not locking.
Right.
When I was in the housing business, nearly all of our houses were locked in for 20 to 35 years.
Okay. Okay.
So that you knew that you were going to have how much you had to earn.
Exactly.
Pay your mortgage. But today, of course, things are not as simple as they were then. So
is this primary solution, would you say, we're talking about housing and farming and all of this and who's controlling that over tea. What is the solution to that?
To break them up.
Okay.
Say, if a certain size, break them in 2 or 5 or something like that, because they keep talking about this market economy.
Mm-hmm.
There's no market economy.
Okay.
I mean, there is in vegetables at the market,
right?
And some fish or lobsters, but there's no market economy in just about anything, the major things, and it's all fixed. So it's a no-win game for the people whose wages are more or less locked, that don't come up as fast as the cost of living does.
Exactly.
All tied together, and people can buy my book and find out all about it.
Yeah. Paul, this is interesting, though. It's really interesting to get into like the economics behind all of this and how it's affecting everybody, who the key players are involved. Obviously, there's an educational component to this to kind of get the word out as you have with your books. And many are starting to speak publicly, obviously, about this. They're being censored, but they're starting to talk about it to educate and say, no, we need to be aware of what's going on, and to hopefully give power back to the people in driving their own economy and having a say in that.
They're moving in the other direction, unfortunately, and we're going to have to stop it.
Yeah. And that's what people are definitely looking towards, is towards a solution. And we want to see actions being taken. What can we do? I mean, are we continue to write letters that may be ignored, or maybe not, or, protest? And yeah, there's a lot of things going on right now.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. So we touched a bit on that. Let's go into, let's go into space, because this is an interesting area for me, because recently in the US, the Pentagon declassified 3 UFO videos, taken three UFOs, were in there by US Navy pilots. And they said that they were off-world vehicles not made on this earth. And shortly after that, the timing's interesting, former Israeli space security chief Haim Esht also said ETs exist, humanity's not ready, and that there's some sort of agreement between the US and these aliens, or star beings, or people from other planets. So because I've heard you sentiment these, you pioneered some of these statements early on in your career. The question is, what are your comments on what's happening here with the disclosure movement? And do you agree that, with what's going on with the world today, that we're not ready to meet our star neighbors?
Well, first of all, I've only been really involved in this for 15 years.
Okay.
But I've been researching it for 15 years, so that even though I'm not a ufologist, I'm a politician with a fair amount of information as to what's going on.
Okay.
And people have been coming to this planet from outside for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And one of the examples in a couple of my books I know about, in the 1960s, a flotilla of 50 UFOs flew south over Europe, and the Sakur, the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe,
okay,
I happened to know personally at the time.
Oh, wow.
He was just ready to hit the panic button to start another war.
Wow.
And fortunately, they turned around and went north over the pole. And then he knew that they were not Russian, which is what they were afraid.
Okay.
But that they were from afar, from elsewhere.
Yes.
He ordered a study to be done. Took 3 years. I think in 3 or 4 countries were involved in it. Mm-hmm. And the study, I think its only name was The Document or something like that.
Okay.
But there was a chap there who had a plum assignment, a former lieutenant who had to take reduction in rank to regimental sergeant major in order to get the job. But he had a classic, he had a very high security rating.
Okay.
So that, according to him, one night he was there and looked bored, and the colonel said, "Here, read this," which he did, and it changed his life forever. Mm-hmm. And what the report said was that at least 4 species had been visiting the planet Earth for thousands of years.
Can you identify the 4 before you carry on?
No, it doesn't mention the 4.
Oh, okay.
But what I can say is that there have been more than that.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Okay. Okay.
And now the numbers, there's a man in the United States who used to help with retrieving crashed vehicles, mm-hmm. A lot of them.
Wow.
And he said, and I got this from him personally over the phone, as well as it's in writing.
Okay.
I think he had a book that the Army gave him when he went out to a crash site with 54 different species in it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that he would know how to approach them.
Wow.
To be concerned about the radiation or this or that or whatever, because they're all different. They're like Fords and Cadillacs and
That was a good analogy, Paul.
well, that's yeah, but it's close to the truth. It's close enough to the truth to be understandable.
Yeah, no, I get you.
And so there are a lot of them. And after the war, they started coming in greater numbers.
Okay. After World War II.
Now,
Okay.
the reason was that after the first atomic bomb was detonated in New Mexico before they dropped Hiroshima, the people above were concerned because the cosmos is a one.
Yes.
Whatever we do here affects people in other parts of the cosmos. And all of a sudden, we said, here are the children playing with matches.
Yeah, that's a good, that's an analogy, yes. Who have no understanding of how it's all connected at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So they started coming in much larger quantities and from different places. And they have mapped out every nuclear device in the world.
Okay.
Where all of the missiles are in the holes of the Western US and so on, wherever they're stored. They've got all of this information because they're very much afraid that we're going to be, and I'm going to think for a nice word here, crazy enough to blow ourselves up.
I've heard that too from several ufologists and other people. Yeah. That we're heading down that road, and that scares a lot of people.
Well, as you know, that the clock now is a minute to 12.
Okay.
The atomic clock, minute 12. And it's very, very serious business. And I think I end my latest book on two notes. One is one of real concern because I was one of the people who thought that we won World War II, but we didn't.
Okay.
And the not only the Americans recognized 1940 that Hitler was going to lose, and they started working on a bigger empire.
Okay.
Still working on it. And the Germans themselves realized it, and they started building a base in Antarctica.
I've heard that as well, yeah.
And in both cases, there's been collaboration with people other than humanoids.
Okay.
And they have developed space capabilities. And so the situation is one that is, very concerning.
Mm-hmm.
But the bright side is that I don't think that the people of light are going to let it happen. There is a Galactic Federation.
Yep.
And it comprises the species that are faithful to the creator.
Mm-hmm.
They call the one, the force.
Yeah.
They have 4 or 5 different names.
Okay.
But that they're faithful to the creator. And then the son who thought he was better at running the cosmos or the father, Lucifer, he's got some forces too, and they're very far advanced,
Okay.
and they've been fighting it out for a long time.
Okay.
And there are, at the moment, there are many motherships standing off our planet. And I saw a picture recently of a whole group of motherships between us and the sun.
Oh, wow.
So things are happening. And you were talking about the US being more forthright in advising the people. I have to challenge that a little bit.
Okay.
Because
Please do.
the pictures of the Navy chasing the
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Well, those weren't foreign ships; those were American ships.
Okay, now that just twisted the whole story. That added a new layer of.
Yeah, and so the commander of the carrier said, "We'll chase these TikTok or whatever they are. They're anti-gravity machines. They're highly developed machines." And
Okay.
and then they peddled it as being and what they said was, "We know they're here, but we don't know what they want." And that was a big lie, of course, because the Navy, U.S. Navy, retrieved its first ship from the South Pacific in 1945.
Wow.
And they have built up a powerful fleet
Okay.
of craft that are capable of interplanetary and interstellar flight. And they have a base on the moon, and they have a base on Mars. And then something happened. Coming back to the Israeli professor.
Yes.
I disagree with him saying that the people aren't ready for it if you give them a little bit at a time. Because I've gone through enough of it myself to say if somebody confronted me with all of the things I know now,
Yes.
15 years ago,
Use research, yeah.
I would probably say, well,
Yeah, right? I mean, that would be the initial, for somebody just starting, they'd be like, they would definitely do the
So we're like people. You start with the pablum and just keep a little bit going until they get the picture, and then they can take it. And I think they should. The U.S. should have started this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And this thing that President Trump told them to do, to get something out by the end of June.
Yes.
There was a word in there that I found. Well, I didn't find it. I just said it's what I would expect. It was all of the unclassified.
Right.
Well, that isn't going to tell the American people anything.
Okay.
It's going to tell them there have been thousands of UFOs. They'll have thousands of pages of UFO sightings. But it doesn't tell the American people that they've got a space fleet and that it's
make those connections.
Yeah, it hasn't. It's not a connection with reality, today's reality, and so and they're still doing it.
You think that's why they're hesitant to kind of make that leap? Is I'm just trying to get this, is so that they don't want to share that they have a fleet and that they've kept it from people this whole time, because they would be definitely upset and angry that this technology exists.
They don't want the people to know what they plan to do with it.
Okay, well, that's a different question there, Paul.
That's what the
Okay, so which begs the question: what do they want to do with the whole fleet of highly advanced starships, or these?
Have you heard of the New World Order?
Yes, I have.
Well, they have plans for a New World Order.
Okay. The military.
Yeah.
But there's different, you mentioned there's different layers of the military, because it's kind of like some people are aware of some darker layers and some are not, right? There's like privileges or,
The whole thing was shielded under the National Security Act
okay.
on a basis of need to know.
Okay.
And so no two people knew what was going on except what they were doing.
Okay.
And there are very, very few people that know the whole picture. Very few. I don't know how many of them, but very few.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have been covering up because they have this plan. In effect, we didn't win the war, World War II.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans just went underground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've heard of Operation Paperclip.
I've heard of that. Yes, the name, but for those of you who haven't, can we?
Yeah, after the war, the United States forces brought a lot of German scientists
Mm-hmm.
and engineers to the United States and gave them new names and new CVs,
Okay.
and then appointed them to top jobs,
Right.
both civil and military. And the reason they're called Operation Paperclip is because the old CVs and the new CVs were
held together by a paperclip. Yeah.
And actually, Wikipedia has a pretty good, Wikipedia has a pretty good description of what happened. Then later, Alan Dulles, who was himself friendly to the Nazis, brought in thousands more and flooded the CIA with them, he was the head of the CIA at the time, and his brother was Secretary of State.
Okay.
So they have tremendous power. And then there was Operation High Jump, where they found out about the Nazis having been building a base on Antarctica. Mm-hmm. And sent a flotilla over there to take it out. And instead of being able to take it out, one of the ships was sunk and some people were killed, and they had to come home with the tails between their legs, so to speak.
Right.
Byrd was absolutely furious, wanted to nuke them. But by then, the people from Operation Paperclip had sufficient influence in the forces that it never happened.
Okay. Fast forwarding to today and where we are. How are we going to put all this together? Because it's I mean, the medical system has, and some have commented, and many Canadian doctors have spoken out about this, who have received a lot of backlash about how tyrannical it's been getting and playing, health and politics together and all of that. And then, people are wanting full disclosure. People are statistically aware that we're not alone in the cosmos here. So, I mean, we're already understanding that, and we're demanding more. And some may, after hearing basically the truth kind of come out and uncover, which I appreciate like your honesty with this, is how do you not feel disheartened? And how do you, in your recent book here, Light at the End of the Tunnel, where is the light, Paul? What is your message for humanity right now with all of this?
I have to be diplomatic with what I say now.
Okay.
It's my fourth last book.
Oh, is it?
No, it was more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
And
my apologies.
In it, I said we had 10 years to do something about global warming.
Right.
And 10 years have gone by and nothing's been done. So, and I have a line in there, though, that I'm very proud of.
Okay.
I said, I didn't know how much I didn't know because I didn't know how much there was to know.
Like that.
That's as true today as when I wrote it
Right.
11 years ago.
Okay.
So when I wrote that book, I was probably grade 2 or 3 in the scale of understanding the UFO significance and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years later, I wrote the Money Mafia, excuse me, the World in Crisis,
Okay.
becoming something of a classic. And if somebody really wants to know what's going on in the world, I would say that that's probably the best.
That's the best source to go to. Okay. And I'll add the links in the bio below so people know where to reach you, and your website as well.
Thank you. And so that's because I learned so much in the meantime.
Right.
About the structure, about the underground bases, about the collaboration with the aliens and so on. Well, then 4 years later, I had learned so much on the spiritual side.
Yes.
Including the creator's creation of the cosmos, the fact that we were all siblings because we're all made out of God particles. And it doesn't matter whether your face is brown or white or black or yellow or whatever.
Yes.
We're all siblings.
Yeah.
We have to learn to treat each other as siblings and to treat each other with respect and the kind of...
Do you know how siblings treat each other nowadays?
Right?
Siblings can be pretty tough on each other nowadays too.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I had to, because it's just a sibling as well. So
you can't reach my age without knowing that there's some problems involved.
It's family, there's dynamics involved, but we need to resolve these things, right?
That's right. And so I go into that. I had enough information for a few chapters, but not for a whole book. So I put my autobiography on the front of it. And that's the reason I say that Canadians, I think, would probably enjoy it and find it more fulfilling than perhaps even the present book. But they're all different. They all have a different message. And each one was to be my last book.
I know you write that in there too. You're like, this is going to be my last.
That's what I told my wife. So this time it is the final book.
Okay.
Because I don't think she could stand another one. And I could spend the rest of my life just trying to teach people about the stuff that's in the 4 that I've already done. They pretty well cover the waterfront, actually.
Okay.
And if anybody wants an autographed copy, they can get it from my website.
Good to know.
And all of the books are on sale there. But you have to read books. When Alan Dulles was asked how he could smuggle so many Nazis into the United States, his answer was because Americans don't read books. And it's true of Canadians.
Okay. What do you have any events or anything coming up online or wherever that people can reach you and be more involved in like a solution oriented approach? I mean, obviously what's happening is globally, people are looking to decentralize somehow money system currency. We talked about that earlier on, but it doesn't seem to be, they're trying to look for solutions.
Well, I'm going to be talking about solutions for a while. From the 5 plagues that the Kabbalah is subjecting us to. Mm-hmm. And they include, of course, the money and the global warming and so on. And so I'll be spending a lot of time on that. The only event of major proportions that on the thing now is Contact in the Desert.
Okay.
At the end of June.
And so there's an event that you're joining with them. I saw that, so I can market that as well. It's an online event that you'll be speaking at, correct? Okay. Okay.
And also apparently George Nuri wants me on his panel. We'll probably have some interesting things to say, I hope. One final thing that your audience might be interested in. On the February 21st, there was one of the people from the space station was outside doing a spacewalk fixing it.
Okay.
And there was a mothership, I'm told, and I'm not sure whether it was 8 or 9 miles long, it doesn't really matter.
Okay. Wow.
That saw it and decided to come up and do a circle right around so that it would be photographed.
Okay.
And
I will find a picture of that, and hopefully I can screenshot it in here so we can make a reference to it.
Don't get too over enthusiastic.
Oh, well.
So my source sent it to me on Facebook.
Okay.
And I went to the link as soon as I got it. And I saw the guy working outside and flying around and so on. I looked way down in the corner and I saw this ship looked about the size of a huge cigar.
Right.
And all of a sudden, nothing but a blank page. This page removed due to copyright.
Okay.
Not only that, but the original email has disappeared from my files.
How does that happen?
Well, you tell me.
That is insane. From your inbox, it's gone.
Yeah.
Do you use Gmail? Gmail has been having some, that's insane. All right. This is tough, huh? When you're going up against such a, I guess educating yourself, as you said, keeping hope, and however you want to see people having their own personal relation and empowering themselves with Creator, connecting.
Right.
Connecting that we're all that message that we're one, and we're it's what keeps me sane.
And I think it's true that we are headed for a higher plane.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
How soon and how, I don't know the mechanics, but I know that there are a lot of very spiritual people. Spiritual as opposed to people who belong to somebody that sect that's going to try and kill another one. And they're, I think, moving in the right direction. But it's something that's happening that is positive. And I think the most positive thing is that I do not think that the Galactic Federation is going to stand by and see us wiped out the way that some people would like to see us wiped out.
Okay, good to know, Paul. Thank you. Thank you so much for this very informative, eye-opening interview, honestly. And I know I didn't include this question, but I really want to ask it because you have such a diverse background in many fields. What do you want to be like known for, that you're like, what are you most proud of as your legacy that you've done thus far?
I want to be known for telling the truth,
Okay.
regardless of the cost, and for doing what I am sure the Creator God wants me to do at the time, or to let people know that what we're fighting is a spiritual battle.
Okay.
And that you have to decide whether you're going to be on the side of the light or on the side of the dark.
It's very Star Wars, right? Totally Star Wars. Well, that's it. Thank you so much, Paul, for your time today, with great appreciation and adoration for everything you've done for humanity, for Canada, and for speaking your truth that helps others to speak, like myself, my truth. And so thank you for that. And stay tuned for more interviews that will be coming up. So I'll have all of Paul's details below in the link, and we'll keep in touch, I'm sure.
Right.
Thank you, Paul.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.